Carl here from Brrraaains A Head-Banging Life, gbhblofficial for short, and it's album review time. And where the hell did this come from? It's Japanese instrumentalist D-Drive. They have a brand new album called Dynamotive. The record's set to be released via Marshall Records on August 26th. It is the culmination of many years of work for this band. Now, hands up, went into this album not knowing anything about this band. I hadn't even heard of them. Quick check of the social medias and the YouTubes and stuff like that, and realised, well, I probably should have heard of this band. Maybe I didn't pass, but I certainly didn't pay that much attention to them, or really any attention at all. So when I see Japanese instrumentalists, I'm like, okay, that's quite intriguing, but what kind of music is it? What we doing here? Are we doing heavy metal? Are we doing modern metalcore? What's going on here? And then I kind of see classic rock and classic heavy metal and elements of prog and jazz and stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be really interesting. This is going to be at least wacky, and I can get into that, and maybe I'll find the words for it. I was playing a game on my console, and I put this album on in the background just to give it a listen, with no plans really to review it. Just check it out, and maybe some words would come to mind. Half an hour later, computer was off. I was in front of a keyboard, tapping away, writing as many words as I could of my feelings on this album, and I wanted to then reflect in a video because I ended up loving this album. Absolutely loved it. One of the tracks in particular is up there as one of my favourite of the year. Part of that comes from the fact that it's a clever, interesting and wholly unique style of music. D-Drive can be simply summed up as instrumental rock, yet such simple words cannot convey in the slightest the amount of fascinating touches that makes this band and this album such a novel listen. If, like me, this is your first experience of D-Drive, then be ready to have your socks well and truly blown off as they deliver a raucous display of classic heavy rock music blended with elements of metal, jazz and prog. Now, you kind of get that whole unique proposition thing. I mean, it might sound kitchen sinky, but the way they utilize all these elements is absolutely fascinating. From the roaring energy of Red Light, Green Light, where the guitars are so very fine, to the complex instrumentation and winding groove of Begin Again. From the heavier and sharper groove of I Remember the Town, to the flashy headbanger that is Get Away, and the soaring brilliance of Be Yourself. That first half of the album is addictive listening. I was completely sold and figured the second half, if it did anything like the first, I would be looking at one of the albums of the year. But it was more than that. Be expected as I ended up being to be fully immersed in what D-Drive are doing here by this stage. It's impossible to not all be in the instrumental cleverness, and the second half only deepens that connection. D-Drive explode with absolute vibrancy, the old school rock body shaker that is Runaway Boy, before they come out swinging with the technically wild and energetic thumbs up. So much variety on show, it's quite simply flabbergasting. There's still plenty more reasons to be wowed though, as D-Drive then deliver an exuberant display with Wings. Following that up with You, Me, the opening of which is such a light as up high moment, you know, the old classic days. It is lovely sounding, and as the track develops, it doesn't lose that potency, it's just directed into something more intense sounding. This track here, You, Me, best track in the album, the one I referenced at the start, cannot get enough of this. But sadly, that does bring us to the end. It's a sad end as well, as D-Drive have impressed so very much here. However, of course, all good things must end. We don't want it to overstay its welcome. And with Breakout, Dynamotive comes to a close. A finale as grand, imaginative, and as brilliant as everything heard so far. Come on guys, what an album this is. Hopefully I'm preaching to the choir, but if, as I said before, you like me, this is your first experience of it, I'm hoping you're going to enjoy it as much as I do. If you haven't heard of this band before, be prepared to hear of little else going forward based off what I think is going to be a phenomenal response. Not just from their hardcore fan base, but hopefully from people like me who are discovering them and going, holy shit, check this band out. It's Dynamotive. It's out on August 26th and not too long to wait at all. Please check this one out. Come back here. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please help us out by giving us a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. If you really liked what you saw, consider donating to keep the website and channel running by buying us a coffee via our coffee page or picking up some merch from our Big Cartel store. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as via our social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, as well as listen to our interviews via SoundCloud, Apple Music and Spotify. Just search for GBHBL. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?